About Indigenous peoples and autonomy. Our territories. Our cultures. Our decisions. Worldwide, there are at least 500 million people belonging to more than 4,000 indigenous peoples who have survived conquests, colonialism, and current forms of domination and extermination. Indigenous people inhabit all continents: Asia, Africa, Oceania, America, Europe. In other words, they flood the lands and seas of the planet with their lives, knowledge, and thousands of millenary languages. All these indigenous peoples have been trapped within the borders of modern states, but retain, to a greater or lesser degree, their ancestral forms of organization, justice, and their own authorities. But how far does their freedom go to decide and govern their territories? Can we say that all indigenous peoples of the world have the same autonomy and freedom to determine their destiny? Before answering these questions, perhaps it would be useful to talk a little about what the terms autonomy and self-determination mean in relation to indigenous peoples. In simple terms, we could say that the autonomy of an indigenous people consists of the real possibility of making decisions about their culture, their government, their territories, and their resources. Something similar is established in international law standards, such as the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. This declaration states that Indigenous peoples have the right to self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. In Article 4, it states that Indigenous peoples, in exercising their right to self-determination, have the right to autonomy or self-government in matters relating to their internal and local affairs, as well as ways and means for financing their autonomous functions. Naturally, autonomy can hardly be achieved if a state is not willing to recognize the decisions made by the peoples, guaranteeing the rights recognized in national and international regulations. In these cases, peoples and their authorities are at an enormous disadvantage, and they must fight constantly for their decisions to be respected. But it is also true that autonomy and self-determination cannot be achieved if indigenous peoples do not come together to defend their history and their collective interests, ensuring that these rights truly benefit them all. Well, at this point, we can say that in the world, many indigenous peoples have great limitations to be autonomous and to determine their destiny because the states where they live deny them. Other peoples have some degree of autonomy, but only on certain issues. And finally, some few enjoy full autonomy, although they are not always sure of what is in their collective best interest. We are already seeing that it is worthwhile to know more about the experiences and problems that exist in terms of autonomy and self-determination. And for this reason, in a future video, we will look at how these rights are lived in different parts of the world.